All right. Greetings and welcome to another episode of the Unnamed Bracketology podcast. My name is Kerry Miller, joined as always by my good friend Graham Dorn. And we have a guest with us on this Super Sunday. I assume the Chiefs are playing later. I haven't really checked. But Matt Browning, MB Bracketology on Twitter, which, I mean, what a fortunate initial for you. Every time I see that, I'm like, oh, it's the official men's basketball bracketology. You nailed it on that one. But thanks for jumping on with us. Let us know how long you've been doing bracketology and what got you into it in the first place.
Well, first off, thanks for having me on, guys. Appreciate it. Looking forward to talking some bracketology with you too. I've been doing bracketology, I guess, for 15, 20 years, but didn't really start putting it out there until maybe 2020, 2021. Um, and I've loved college basketball since the day I can remember. Remember, my dad's was a high school basketball coach for 35 years. I've loved the game since I was 5 years old, and growing up in the state of Kansas, it was always KU, K State, Wichita State, and there was usually just KU, right? But then Wichita State got good in the 2000s and stuff, and that was fun. And so I just have a passion for it, man, and I love being able to share my thoughts and opinions with people on social media and get their thoughts back. And as somebody said, I think it's made for March has the description in his Twitter bio. Every day should be March, and I agree with that. It's the best time of the year by far.
Yeah, I've seen Rob Doster's been doing that for Field of 68 lately. They all stole it from who was it that did every day should be Saturday in the college football realm, but I think
Yeah.
that's Spencer Hall. But anyway, let's throw up the spreadsheet after a pretty crazy Saturday. I thought it might be a tame day, but then it got a little out of hand. So here we have I'm just calling them the five gems. We've got, I think there are 16 total games on here, broken into three different sections. Now, obviously, the first one was on Friday. St. John's winning at home against Connecticut. We all still have UConn as our fourth number one seed after that result, but definitely put the Johnnies, if not all the way locked in, darn close to it. We all have them as a five seed now. I think I already had them as a five seed and just bumped them up a little bit. But any major takeaways from that game? Graham, let's start with you since you've said nothing thus far.
Thanks for giving me a word, Carrie. I think with UConn, doesn't hurt too bad, really. Like, it was a good opportunity to kind of sew up the one seed positioning, but without it, it's not the end of the world. It is important they went out from here on out, in my opinion, in the Big East, because I do think there's so many teams with opportunities to pass them. Iowa State is right there. Houston's got plenty of opportunities. Illinois is still not out of this thing. Even Nebraska still sitting at 2 losses. You never know if the Cornhuskers keep that up. It could be them. So I think looking at UConn, still a one seed for me, and obviously four overall for all of us. I think the more important side of things was St. John's. Not only does it lock up a bid, I think it puts them into that protected seed discussion. I don't think they're there yet because they need a better road win than at Villanova. But if they get a win against UConn, I absolutely think they're going to be a protected seed.
Matt, you got any thoughts on that game?
Yeah, St. John's to me, I sometimes wonder if had they reached their ceiling, right? For Graham's very point, and that UConn at UConn is the lone remaining really impact game on their schedule, short of the Big East tournament. I think if other teams maybe collapse, the Johnnies could get to the four line. But just a feeling I have is that we've seen the seed ceiling for St. John's. But to be fair, they had to get that win on Friday to get to this point, anyways. But I don't know if they can go much further up than this.
Yeah, I think for a team that just really did nothing in non-conference play, right, running up the record against this terrible Big East isn't going to do much for them without that road win over UConn. This does kind of feel like their ceiling because right now I think I have North Carolina at 15, Texas Tech at 16. Those teams have done much more. I feel like there's a bit of a bump for them to get over at this point. But yeah, to your both your points, I think they're a lock now. Second game on the list here, Kentucky once again comes back from a double-digit deficit to clip Tennessee. I believe they were down by 17 in the first game. They were down by 14 yesterday. Did not lead by more than a single possession in either of those games, but they led the only time of the game that it actually matters. Now that they have that sweep, I have bumped Kentucky ahead of Tennessee. I when I originally did this, I had Tennessee at 20 and Kentucky at 21. I was like, oh no, and flipped them real quick. But you guys still have Matt, you still have Kentucky as a 6 seed. Graham, you've bumped Kentucky up to right behind me. What are your? We'll start with Matt on this one. How are you feeling about these respective SEC teams now?
Fellas, I cannot figure out Kentucky for the life of me. Like I want to be able to trust Kentucky on the 5 line, but then they might go to Florida and lose by 20. I mean, I have no idea. So I can see this where you guys would have them that high. I just cannot get there yet. Maybe I should just trust the resume and that this team is, I mean, with the 3 quad 1A victories, trust that part of it. But I just can't get there. I maybe I need to overcome that. Tennessee, I was a little higher on Tennessee this time last week. I actually had them on the 4 line. I bumped them down. I'm not sure. I have to look real fast where I had them. I think they might be they're my last 5 seed right now. They kind of blocked me, to be fair. The resume doesn't really scream a whole lot of great to it. Yeah, they 3 quad 1A wins, but there's just 4 and 7 in the first quadrant. All these SEC schools outside Florida, your Alabamas, Arkansas, Tennessee, Kentucky's are just kind of this group. And I don't know how much one is going to emerge over the other in the coming weeks.
Yeah, I think when you look at Kentucky and Tennessee, I do see Tennessee, in my opinion, still has a better overall resume, which is why I didn't get into that head-to-head, not just single game, but sweep for
Yeah.
Kentucky. I think that will absolutely come into play if those two get right next to each other. But for me, I think Tennessee, the thing that stands out to me is not only do they have an elite road win at Alabama, and if you're as high on Alabama as I am, that's a really meaningful win. But the more important thing is they handed Houston their only loss outside of a home game. Houston lost to Texas Tech and Lubbock, but yeah, you know what? As great of a win as that is, it's a home game. Tennessee beat them neutral. I think that really will resonate with the committee. So I think when you look at Tennessee overall, I still think they have a stronger resume than Kentucky. That sweep, though, will come into play if those two get right next to each other, like Kerry thinks they're right next to each other right now.
Mm-hmm.
It is wild how much the things out of Kentucky's control have helped their resume, right? Those wins over Indiana and St. John's just look so much stronger than they did even at the time. I don't has St. John's even I guess they lost their Providence game since then, but I think they're like 12-1 since that game against Kentucky, and Indiana has played their way somewhat comfortably into the field. So I mean that's not a win over Houston by any stretch of the imagination. So I think you're probably right. And I originally did, like I said, I had Kentucky one spot behind Tennessee and just wasn't ready to deal with that Twitter angst if I went ahead and published that. But yeah, I think there, to Matt's point, there's Florida, and then there's just this kerfuffle of SEC teams that are going to keep interchanging with each other over the next 5 weeks. I do now have Missouri. I got them just barely into my field, jumping away from this bucket of teams for a little bit. So now I have the SEC as an 11 bid league, even though I only have one SEC team in my top 4 seeds overall. I kind of hate that, but I also don't know what else to do about that. But we could talk about the bubble in a little bit. Third game on the list here: Houston goes on the road, beats BYU. The Cougars have now lost 4 in a row, 5 out of their last 6. Well, the BYU Cougars, I should say. They're both Cougars. You guys both got Houston up to 5 overall. I couldn't quite get them over Illinois because Illinois still has 5 quad 1A wins, but it's splitting hairs at 5 and 6 overall. But I think the more interesting note here is that BYU is now down to a 7 seed for all three of us, and how quickly that has developed. I mean, they were 16-1, and I think a 2 seed for most people like 3 weeks ago, and now they have just proven time and again that they can't beat a quality opponent. Most of the time, they dig themselves a 15-point hole 15 minutes into the game and then struggle to come back. Where do you think BYU ultimately ends up? Because they do absolutely still have opportunities ahead of them. I know they still play Arizona. I think they still play Iowa State. Or I don't think they play Kansas again, but I think they still have a game against Texas Tech. So those opportunities are there, but are they just going to prove that BYU shouldn't be a single-digit seed?
That's the thing. Get me a quality win. Let me see something on that resume that makes me think, okay, you should not be playing in the 8-9 game or the 7-10 game. Be Iowa State at home, be Texas Tech at home. I don't care about going on the road and winning at Arizona. Whatever. That's not going to happen probably. Give me one of those wins. Heck, even if you win at Baylor or at West Virginia, that's a quad one win. Just show me something. And I think we had this in our group text. Like we're all just kind of like putting him on a certain spot because we're waiting for it to happen. Beat somebody. That's all I ask from BYU, and then they will be out of those 7, 8, 9 seed range. But until then, that's where they belong.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. They remind me a lot of Louisville. Also, Louisville this year reminds me of Louisville last year, but BYU reminds me a lot of Louisville last year, where I look at the team play and I think, yeah, this is a very good basketball team. But I don't care if you've got some quad one wins. I want to see when you have that many opportunities to beat the best, you got to do something with it. And I just think BYU has squandered too many opportunities to be given the benefit of the doubt. On the other side, Houston, obviously, Matt and I have them fifth overall, carry sixth. So right in play for a one seed. I do look at that schedule and I get a little concerned for Houston. Here's the reason I'm a little concerned for their one seed chances. No wins over a top four seed right now, at least on my bracket, no wins over a top four seed. And on top of that, yeah, they get Arizona at home, but their road games are Iowa State and Kansas. If they're going to pick up a big win, Arizona's the only one at home. They're going to have to do it on the road. They already did it against BYU, but now the competition rises a little bit higher. I don't know. That's a really tough path for Houston, even though I think they're maybe one of the best four teams in the country.
Yeah, if they're a 2 seed, I'm probably going to be picking them to beat their 1 seed. They're just so good right now. But if they were to take advantage of that schedule, if they if they're still a
Oh,
2-loss team 15 days from now, they might be the number 1 overall seed if they go and win at Iowa State, beat Arizona, win at Kansas. I mean, even if Michigan doesn't lose before then, I mean, it would certainly probably vault them right ahead of Arizona, and they would then have 4 really, really, really quality wins. I think they'd be right there in that mix, but we'll save that until 2 weeks from now, see if they actually pull it off. Michigan State bounces back, gets a home win over Illinois in overtime. Jeremy Fears finished with 26 points, 15 assists, and another tripping controversy. I don't is that ever going to come up in the bracketology problems? It's right there with the Charles Bediako mess. I joked on Twitter last night. I hope the committee has a sense of humor and gives us a 4 seed Michigan State matched up with a 5 seed Alabama. But yeah, I think if Illinois had won this, they probably would have jumped over UConn for that fourth number 1 seed, even with the head-to-head loss to UConn. They would have just had such a ridiculous stockpile of quality wins at that point. But this gets the Spartans back up to a 3 seed, just barely for all of us, right after that loss at Minnesota. Matt, any thoughts on this game in particular?
I was really looking forward to having that internal debate this morning with Illinois and UConn because I agree with you. I think I would have been tempted to put Illinois on the one line as the fourth number one overall seed. Michigan State needed this one. I felt like after losing to Michigan and then losing bad really to Michigan, they rallied, but they lost there. I think they need a get right game. My question for you guys about Michigan State though is much like we talked about with St. John's. What's the ceiling here? Right? I don't know if I see anything higher than a 3 seed. I know their schedule presents opportunities, but I kind of get a feeling that this is where we're gonna cap the Spartans off. Illinois, like we said at the top here, they're still very much in play for a 1 seed if they take care of business and they can get that fourth spot on the one line. But Michigan State, this is big for them, I thought.
Yeah, I thought Michigan State needed to stop the bleeding, but they still haven't picked up a big road win. That hasn't changed. This was a game in East Lansing. If anything, they finally won a big game in East Lansing. They had not been doing that. So I think Michigan State at 12, to your point, Matt, not only like a seed ceiling, but I think they'll be lucky to keep a 3 seed. I think they're more likely
Agree.
to fall off the 3 line.
Yeah, I mean they still have road games against Purdue and Michigan, so the chances are there to prove it. But I don't know that I trust this team to pull it off, especially if Tom Izzo ever does, bench Fears for a game. But I don't think he will. Last game here, Duke loses to North Carolina. Let's skip right over that. No, uh, and Matt, you still have Duke at 2 overall. I was a little surprised by that. And Graham, you already had Michigan ahead of Duke, so nothing really changed for you. I thought that was going to be a toss up that would be decided when Duke plays Michigan here in Washington, D.C. in a couple of weeks. But I guess it still will be. I think if
Yeah.
Duke wins that one, they'll bounce back ahead of the Wolverines, but bigger, similar to the Michigan State Illinois game. I think it's more so that the team that won really solidified its standing. We all of us got North Carolina up to a 4 seed now at this point. And I don't even think there was a case for the Tar Heels on the 4 line prior to this. Graham, why don't you go ahead and start on Duke UNC here?
Well, I think Duke is obviously still in terrific shape for a 1 seed. Now that Michigan game becomes a little bit more critical if they want to stay a 1 seed. I'm not saying they have to have it, but their cushion is gone now. That's, to me, the big takeaway. More importantly, UNC, as you mentioned, Kerry, they bumped up to a 4 seed. I did not see them having a resume that deserved to be there without it. I think North Carolina, though, like when you look at them from a big picture standpoint, it's easy to get lost in they beat Duke, they beat Kansas. It's like, yeah, but those were at home. Those are very big wins, but they were at home. To me, it's that UVA road win that actually really stands out the most from their resume and why I think you can justify having them on the 4 line. But I know you guys have all seen it. All the UNC fans keep seeming to gloss over that 4 game stretch where they lost to Cal, they lost to Stanford. They barely beat Wake Forest, gave up 90 points at home to Wake Forest. And they also lost to SMU, really not all that competitively in Dallas. So I look at UNC and I still see a very good resume, but one that I still have some questions about.
Yeah, the 15 and 16 spot on my seed list have been kind of a revolving door of teams. I was glad that North Carolina decided to take hold of that. I hear you, Graham, with the 2 home wins versus Kansas and Duke, but compared to other teams who might be vying for those spots, those might be really big wins come Selection Sunday to keep Carolina in the 4 liner, moving a bit even higher on the seed list. That was huge for them yesterday. In regards to Duke being number 2 overall for me, I feel as though sometimes I talk out both sides of my mouth. And what I mean by that is I have Houston above Illinois. Illinois has 4 more quad 1A wins. I went with Duke over Michigan because it had its 10-2 record in quad one, 10 wins in quad one versus 7. So I'm kind of talking about both sides of my mouth there. I think we both, all three of us can agree that 2 and 3 on the seed list for the on the 1 line, and then 5 and 6. It's you're you know it's 6 and one half dozen the other. But that's what was my logic there. But I mean, there's no problem with me having with anybody else having Michigan above Duke on the seed list.
Before we move on to our next subset of games, I'll just say in favor of North Carolina, as much as it pains me, they kind of remind me of that 2015 Duke team where just in early January they could not play defense to save their freaking lives. They like gave up 98 points in a loss to Miami. They lost at NC State, couldn't play, and then all of a sudden they figured it out on defense. Like I could not have imagined a world a month ago where Duke only scored 68 points in this game against North Carolina. I don't know if that says more about the Heels defense improving
Hmm.
or if it says
Hmm.
something about the refs only blowing 7 whistles on North Carolina last night. I won't get into that, but I think they have turned a corner and they've really improved over the last month.
Yeah.
Let's go.
I mean, you knew
Go
they'd
ahead.
figure it out sooner or later.
Okay. Funny. All right. Here we got 5 brutal losses from yesterday, and starting at the top with, I think it has to be the most surprising of them all. Vanderbilt losing at home to what was an 11-12 Oklahoma team. Obviously, it does nothing to get the Sooners into the at-large conversation, but it does, similar to BYU, we all coincidentally ended up with Vanderbilt at the top of the 5 line. To Matt's point, that like 15-16 spot has been a revolving door, and I think Vanderbilt has shown itself out at this point. They really need to do something to prove that they belong back in that projected or protected seed range. Do we really have anything to discuss here since we all agree on where Vanderbilt should be seated?
Well, let me ask you a question. So if Texas Tech falls at West Virginia today, will you guys put Vanderbilt back up to number 16 overall?
Well, I actually have
We'd have
Texas
to.
Tech as a 5 seed. I'm treating
Oh,
Vanderbilt very
okay.
similarly to how I treat BYU. I am going as low as I possibly can based on their metrics while punishing them. And I think that's the deal. I just don't think they've earned a 4 seed. I really think it's that simple to me. I think the committee would look at them and say, that's just not worthy. I don't care what the metrics say. You didn't do enough. And I think it's again, very similar to that Louisville team from last year, where I know some bracketologists are like, the committee just got it wrong. I'm like, actually, I think the committee got it right. I
Hmm.
think the committee absolutely got it right with Louisville last year. They looked past the metrics and just looked at how they did when they played their top teams. And I think Vanderbilt, you look at winning on the road at UCF, it's like, is that great of a win? Like, I'm not saying it's an easy win, but is that really what you're building your profile on? Or beating an injured Alabama at home by 6 while giving up 90 points in the process? I just think the committee will not be that impressed by the Vanderbilt resume. So I think, regardless of who it is, the committee will find somebody at this point to put above Vanderbilt because they haven't earned that spot.
Yeah, I think
That's
I kind
fair.
of feel the same way. They're almost like the 4 seed equivalent of what Santa Clara has been for me for the longest time. Like we finally have Santa Clara in the field, spoiler alert, but I was just like finding any reason to not put them in because they didn't have that great win. They had that terrible loss. Yeah, I feel like this might be a ceiling for Vanderbilt unless they were to pick up. They get a chance at Florida yet this season? Do they not? I'm not looking at their schedule.
I can't remember whether they go to Florida.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
We
don't
know how it
recall.
worked out in Nashville.
Right, yeah, but that could always turn if
No,
they had called that hook and hold.
they have Tennessee twice. They close at Tennessee and they close and Kentucky at Ole Miss at Tennessee to close the season for Vanderbilt.
Yeah, that's a chance for them to BYU their way out of this thing. Moving on to the next game, New Mexico. I don't know if we all had them in prior to that loss. I had them in at like 44 overall, but you lose at home to Boise State, you're in trouble. Though none of us have Boise State particularly in the bubble conversation, but they have suddenly gotten a little bit interesting. They have 3 quad 1 wins. Now, granted, they're 3-6 in quad 1, and all 9 of those games were quad 1B. So, take it with that grain of salt. They also have that god awful loss to Hawaii Pacific that we have to bring up every single Sunday on the pod. But this is more so the case of New Mexico kind of playing its way out. I think they have 3 road games left against. Oh, who is it? I know they play at Utah State. I think they play at Nevada, and I think they might still have a game at Boise State, and they have a home game against San Diego State. So they've got their Mountain West slate ahead of them, but they're really going to have to prove they belong. I think they probably have to go 6-2 down the stretch to get back in. Graham, I'm sure you have New Mexico still close. I just don't have your exact seed on them.
Close-ish. I don't think the
Oh, I'm going
committee
to
would
write
give
that
them
right in
too
there.
much of a. I really
Close
don't think the committee would
ish.
give them too much of a thought at this point. There's just not enough there. I actually kind of feel the same way about San Diego State too. Every time I look at that profile, they're fifth out for me. I just don't see it for those Mountain West teams besides Utah State. I think we really could potentially be looking at a one bid Mountain West if Utah State doesn't it ends up winning the auto bid because I really am just not seeing the quality wins that I would expect to see from New Mexico and San Diego State if they want to be in.
Yeah, I would think that one of the two will get in, assuming they take care of business, relatively speaking, down the stretch. I had New Mexico in as of yesterday. They're now my fourth team out today. I have San Diego State in, almost because nobody else really has played their way in, I guess. I don't
Yeah.
know how to describe it, but if Ohio State were to beat Michigan today, then San Diego State would be out and Ohio State would be in for me.
Yep. Yeah,
Might be
I would
might
agree
be
with you. Ohio
far-fetched, but we'll
State.
see what happens.
I feel like it's going to happen. That's just Ohio State. They've gotten too far away from the bubble cut line. Now they have to vault back into it. That's what they're going to be all
Right.
season. Uh, Tough loss for Virginia Tech. Not a game they were supposed to win at NC State, but a game they almost had to win. I think they've just accumulated too many losses at this point. We all have them narrowly on the wrong side of the bubble. The metrics still, mandate we keep them in the conversation, but I think they're out at this point. I'm a little bit lower on NC State than you guys, and I can feel that. I knew before I even saw your seeds that I was probably going to be the lowest on the Wolfpack. I probably have been all season long. I got nothing against them. I think I just when they were 0-5 against Quad One, but undefeated otherwise, I'd like just kind of put a mental block on how far I could vault NC State in, but they've won six in a row. They've really proven they belong. I think they're Graham. Do you have them as a lock at this point, or what's your count of locks these days?
They are in win next game in lock, and I've got a few other teams. I think I got five other teams over there, but their next game is at Louisville. They win that one, they'll
Yeah.
have no problem making the field. But I feel like they're already there. They just have won so many games in quads 1 and 2, even if they're not particularly impressive games. They at least had a schedule decently enough to even get that many opportunities. So I think there's that. And beyond that, they have a road win at Clemson, which resonates to me. I think when you look at their overall efficiency and that road win at Clemson and the fact they've won so many games in the first two quads, I feel pretty good about the Wolfpack at this point.
And you look at their schedule coming up, they have some more chances. They have at Louisville, but they have Miami at home, North Carolina at home, and they go to Virginia. So we're looking at a situation here where if they could, even if they go 2-2, I got to think that their seed would improve somewhat if they still win the road games, and they're going to fly up the seed list even this late in the season.
Yeah. I will say for me with them at 31, I'm prepping for my Tuesday morning bracket, and I was assuming that they would lose that game to Louisville. If they were to win, I'd probably bump them up to like 24. But yeah, I think they're pretty solidly in. Next game on the list here, and I don't think it's any coincidence that each of us now has Wisconsin exactly one spot behind Indiana. I also have Indiana exactly one spot behind USC. So the Badgers have now fallen to kind of the bottom of that Big Ten bubble, not quite to UCLA or Ohio State, but they're now, I think, the ninth team in out of the Big Ten after that controversial loss at Indiana. That charge was a terrible call. The block was an even worse call, but it doesn't matter. They got the win. It helps their metrics. Any thoughts on that game outside of how ugly it ended?
Graham, is Indiana, how close are they to lock status for you?
Not close at all.
Not close? Okay.
Yeah.
Well, because I mean,
Uh,
look at their
yeah,
schedule coming up is they have to go. They have Oregon at home first, and they go to Illinois, to Purdue. So they're on the nine seed on the nine line for me right now. That very well could change here in the next week and a half. That's for sure.
yeah,
Yeah, I
they
think
have a tough closing slate.
and that's actually a big concern of mine was if they lost to Wisconsin, man, their
Oof.
chances of having a brutal quad 1 and 2 record was right there. So I think this was a very, very important win for Indiana. I don't think it really hurts Wisconsin all that much, but what I think it means is Wisconsin's not going to be so far away from the bubble that they can't worry about it.
Yeah, I think all four of the just barely in, well, not just barely. These teams are somewhat comfortably in, but these two, USC and UCLA, all have a pretty brutal remaining schedule. UCLA, in particular, their next three at Michigan State versus Illinois. They still have to play home against Nebraska. They have a road game against Minnesota, and they still have both halves of their season series against USC. So just an aside that I think even though UCLA is in right now, they'll probably lose their way out. They almost have to win at least three of those seven, and I don't know if they will. Just a quick note on this one: Seton Hall lost at Creighton on basically a buzzer beater, and the Pirates are now effectively dead. I had them as a seven seed back in December, and now they've lost six out of eight, and I don't see a path back for them. Going over here to these six road winners, and we'll just kind of fly through these. We just got a couple of minutes left. Actually, let's start at the bottom with this Santa Clara win at Washington State. Did you guys put Santa Clara in because they are now technically the projected West Coast Conference champion at 12-1? Because I think they're in as a bubble team regardless.
That's how I feel, Kerry. I did not have them in as the auto, but based on the results of yesterday, and I'm kind of like you, I was finding ways to keep them out because there was not a big win on the schedule. But it's come to the point now where all these other teams that are around that cut line have been losing. I had really, I don't want to say no other choice. That's not a fair way of putting it, but I really felt like now I have to put them in because of what other teams behind them had, or in front of them had done, rather.
Same.
In the Battle of the M's here, Miami, Ohio gets a nice road win over Marshall. I don't know why I'm working from the bottom up. I just feel like it. We do have a pretty significant divide on our seeding of the Red Hawks. I just keep bumping them up because I feel like even if they did take a loss, they would still be pretty comfortably in, honestly. I don't know if they end up there if they, take a second loss, but I think if they were to lose to like Ohio this week, I'd probably still have them right there in that Santa Clara range. So I would have to penalize them to get them down that far. I don't know how my brain works with teams like this, but where Matt, how do you have Miami
Yeah.
Ohio at 46? Because certainly
Uh,
Graham and I have discussed the Red Hawks plenty over the last few weeks.
Oh, I figured I'd get this question. I just can't look at the resume with 19 games versus the quad three and quad four and take it all that seriously as an at large. Now I know a fella on Twitter made the comment comparing them to the 2014 Wichita State team, and there's just no comparison there.
No.
That Wichita State team beat Alabama, they beat Tennessee. The Valley that year was very solid. Um, I don't think with how the resume is constructed, if Miami Ohio lost in the finals of the MAC tournament, that they would get in. That's just a feeling I have based on what the resume is lacking. Just two wins versus the first two quadrants. I'm probably that's not a popular opinion, I would guess, amongst the Twitterverse or even other bracketologists for that matter. But I can't look at that and take it that seriously. If that might be an insult to Miami, and I apologize if it is. But that's kind of how I feel about it.
Yeah, I think we've never had a team with 29 wins get left out. I don't think there may have been a 29, definitely not a 30, and that's what I just keep coming back to in my head. Even though the strength of schedule is god awful, like I'm with you on that. I've been banging that drum for forever. They only have one win over the net top 120. That's terrible. We've never seen a team even in
Yeah,
consideration with that going on. But I don't know. 24 knows 24 0.
agree.
There will
That's
be
fair. Yeah,
hypothetical conversations of like if how would Miami Ohio have done against Texas's schedule and vice versa, but there's no way to answer that, unfortunately.
hmm
Three road wins by SEC teams here. Florida wins at Texas A&M. Alabama wins at Auburn. Georgia wins at LSU. Obviously, that third one, not a particularly strong win, but one that the Bulldogs absolutely had to have. I think if they lose that one, they're right there with, your Cals and your Virginia Techs just on the outside looking in. Anything on those three teams that we want to touch on? Graham, do you still have Alabama at 14 after taking a harder look at it?
I do. I think Alabama, when you look at their road win over St. John's, that's still a very strong win. So I still like Alabama, especially the strength of schedule they played non-conference. I feel again like somebody needed to be above Vanderbilt. I'm fine with Alabama up there. More importantly, I want to talk about Florida and Auburn because I do find both of them
yeah.
interesting. Florida has a really unique profile in that their efficiency is through the roof, and they've lost 6 games, which is kind of unusual to be up there at a 3 seed at this stage for a team that's lost that many games. But I also just feel like it's the way they're winning. So they won at Vandy, obviously, but that was the only game they've played amongst their big four that was decided by under 19 points. They also won at Texas A&M, very big victory. Then they've destroyed Alabama at home. They destroyed Tennessee at home. So I find the Gators really interesting because I think the committee could reasonably say they're a 4 seed at this point, but we all obviously agree with them at 11. I could even see the committee potentially saying, no, they're more like a 9 overall or something. They're an interesting profile to me. But Auburn, I wanted to touch on them for a second because you can see where we all have them all very similar spot, which makes you think maybe they're in a little bit of trouble with making the tournament, but I really don't think so. At the same time, we just talked about Florida being great. They won at Florida. They beat St. John's neutral. They beat both NC State and Arkansas at home, which are both looking better as time goes on. So I think NC State, or not NC State, Auburn is very comfortably in the field, even though their seed is probably going to not be all that great.
The chances of this happening are not high for me. But I'm looking at a hypothetical situation. Florida's schedule, their road games are Georgia, Ole Miss, Texas, and they close at Kentucky on March 7th. Home games at Kentucky as well, South Carolina, Arkansas, Mississippi State. Let's just say, for example, they went out heading to Kentucky. I don't think the one line will happen, but it makes you wonder, could they get close to that one line if they were to do that? And if they went out and they went at Kentucky as well, that would be an incredibly impressive profile which I think already is anyways. I thought long and hard about putting him at number 9 overall this morning. I kept it with Kansas 9, Purdue 10, Florida 11, but I could see a scenario where Florida is number 9 right now, even with 6 losses. But their schedule is not overly difficult. That's very interesting to me. What could potentially happen over the next 3 or 4 weeks with Florida getting close to the 1 line?
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
I think
agree. Sorry, Kerry.
I was just gonna say I think the bar for entry for a 1 seed is just so high. Like we've had it in past, right? I remember there was one year Michigan State was a 1 seed with like 7 losses, and it can happen. But I think this year those 6 losses they would have to win out through the end of the SEC tournament, I think, to really have a case. But you know, to the point that both of you guys are making, like they've been so good. Like since their 5-4 start, they're the third best team in the country as far as Torvik is concerned. They're just struggling to come back from those early losses, which and none of them were bad losses. So, I got a dog coming in.
And
I think.
Kerry,
Go
you
ahead.
talked about you talked about Houston, that whatever 1 seed Houston is with, you had picked them to go to the Final Four. That's kind of feel about Florida, whether they're a
Yeah.
2 seed or a 3 seed. As long as they're not with Houston, that would be a very a pick that I would be willing to make as Florida in the Final Four game because they're playing so well. My goodness.
I would
I haven't
love
done my
to.
actual. Go ahead.
Could you imagine if they put Duke as the 1 seed, Houston as the 2, and Florida as the 3,
Oh
and
my
you basically
gosh.
get a rerun of the Final Four from last year?
Right.
Oh,
That would be
I was just gonna.
terrific.
I was just gonna say I haven't done my actual, bracket building it out yet, but I probably will end up with Houston as the 2 and Florida as the 3 together. But we gotta wrap it up there because I do not have Zoom Pro and it is yelling at me that we're running out of time. But Matt, thank you so much for jumping on with us.
Thanks,
Hopefully
fellas.
we can get you back on another time. Until next time, take care and enjoy the hoop.